Coming up, a founding father of new wave music tells us a wonderfully compelling story of co-writing a song that just exemplified the 1980s. In fact, it's become a defining catchphrase of the neon decade. He co-wrote it at a time when his record label was threatening to drop the band if they didn't come up with a hit. And then when they recorded it, the label thought it was too strange for release. It's truly fascinating, and the interview is next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you love classic rock and pop, you're truly going to enjoy this channel. Make sure that you subscribe right now, right below, to get the stories from the artists. And if you click right up here, you can see our brand new merch. I'm wearing a shirt right here, Choose Music. We also have a Patreon where you can get rare content, more interviews. That helps us to curate this channel, very important. So it's time for another edition of our series, Revelations, where, of course, artists and writers take us through a deep dive into their greatest songs and greatest albums, and a lot of times you get never-before-shared details. On this episode of Revelations, really excited, we have a pioneer of new wave, the great Jerry Casale from the band Devo. Jerry tells us the story behind Devo's 1980 hit song, Whip It. Which has become a cultural touchstone for so many reasons. When it climbed the charts, it was unlike anything on the radio. It definitely ushered in a new era. It was more than welcome. The iconic music video, it was a fixture of MTV from its infancy, and the song is a definite catchphrase that whenever you say it still brings a smile to anybody's face. Jerry tells us a very entertaining story about the uphill climb to get the song to the masses. He also tells us about his new music, really good. It's a can't miss next on Professor of Rock. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. The glasses that you see on my face every day. When you go to Zenni.com, you can design your own frames, and then you can actually see how you look before you buy. You use Zenni, their virtual mirror features, really cool. Check it out at Zenni.com. Here's Jerry. Whip It. One of the most unlikely pop hits ever. Went to number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 11 in Canada and New Zealand. When you recorded Whip It, as I understand it, the record label, well, I always want to ask if this is true or not because there's so many urban legends out there in music, but I understand that they were putting a lot of pressure on you to have a hit because the last album didn't sell as much and they wanted a hit. Did you have the slightest thought that that song would have the kind of mass appeal that it had?
While it is true that they sent one of their lower level A&R men out to see us when we were on tour with Duty Now for the Future. And he took our tour manager aside, Ron Stone, and said, "Hey, just got to tell you, the next album these guys are about to make when they come home, if it doesn't have a hit, we're dropping them." All right? Well, he just dropped that on him and let him tell us that. Now, do you think that changed what we wrote? No, because those are the kind of guys we were. It was like, well, him, like, we're not going to try to sound like other bands. Yeah, it just basically, fed our resolve to be us. So maybe it did help us in a way, because by being yourself, your best self you can be, that's sometimes when you do have a hit. But did we think Whip It was a hit? No. Did anybody at Warner's think Whip It was a hit? No. The only song they liked was Girl You Want. I liked Freedom of Choice. They liked Girl You Want, and so they ran with Girl You Want, and it summarily tanked. It didn't do. So we went out, we started our Freedom of Choice tour. Things looked pretty dire, like they had put their money on red on a roulette wheel and it came up black. And And they weren't about to do anything else. They weren't like going to come with the second single. But a guy named Cal Rudman in Florida, who was a big time influential DJ back when DJs had a lot of independence and were regional. This was before, Clear Channel and all that corporate stuff. He had a tip sheet called Cal Rudman's Monday Morning Quarterback or something. And it went out to so many Parallel 1 stations. And the DJs, he was influential. They listened to Cal Rudman. The thing about Cal Rudman was he probably a corrupt guy taking payola and taking coke and accepting prostitutes? Probably. But he had real ears. He really listened to Devo's record. He didn't like Girl You Want, so he listened to the record. And he seized upon Whip It.
It's not too late to whip it. Whip it good.
And on his own, without Devo having the money to buy him anything, he started playing it. And he put it in his tip sheet. And then 10 other places started playing it. And by the time we had played about 4 or 5 shows, it had traveled up the East Coast, and somebody at a big New York station started playing it, and all hell broke loose. So we had to stop the tour and retool it, because we were going now from clubs to like 3,000 seaters, or like the Fox Theater in Atlanta, and everything just exploded overnight. And that's what happened.
You started writing the song as an imitation of parodies in the book Gravity's Rainbow, is that right?
Yeah. That's what I had been reading. And I loved those limericks and poems he was writing, where it was all about basically this con job, like, you're number one, there's nobody else like you can do it, The propaganda that is America, right? And I just would laugh at how clever they were, and I thought, I'm going to try one. So the lyrics to the whole song were written as you hear them. Nothing changed.
When a problem comes along, you must whip it before the cream sets out too long. You must whip it.
It was amassing music to fit it that was a longer process. And that came from 4 different pieces of sketches over time that Mark had done in his bedroom. They were in different keys, different time signatures. We took them and changed them all into the same key and the same BPM over a beat that we loved, that Alan did, that's like almost like a weird combination of a shuffle and disco beat, right? But it was neither. It was only Devo. Alan was such a great drummer and such an original drummer. And we loved that beat. I think because there was no cynical intent, like where you're sitting there forcing or contriving a hit. I think we were just doing things that we loved that got us off. And that one in particular was very creative. It's very organic, the way it got put together. And then at some point, Mark goes, well, the main line figure I came up with, that's just Pretty Woman with a 2-beat space and then a 2-beat add-on at the end. So instead of being a 4-beat line, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is and it's 8 beats. And if he hadn't said it, I wouldn't have picked up on it.
No. I mean, the arrangement for Whip It, as you just said, was constructed parts of 3 or 4 songs, you said?
Yeah, 3 or 4 sketches, not even whole songs, just riffs.
When you were arranging the song, the bass line, the synth, the organ, it kind of had that, even that surf, like the Ventures you were talking about. I can even hear a little bit of that in there.
That's true. You're right.
It's just a potpourri of so many different styles in there. It just gets in your head. It was cutting edge recording because it was one of the first top 40 hits to use a synth as a primary instrument.
That's true.
Now whip it into shape. Shape it
How did you create, I've always wondered, how did you create the bullwhip sound effect in the song? There's another song that came out a few years after that had a whip sound, and I think it was Kenny Loggins and Steve Perry on a rock song, and they actually took the sound from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They knew the guy that was over sound effects.
On tape, which is everything was on tape. We were in the studio with 2-inch tape. We sampled some white noise time delay. There was a new thing, digital delay. So you hear this white noise, and then we took that and played it backwards and put an effect on it. So it's white noise being sucked back into itself with a short plate echo on the end of it. So it's whoosh, because it's sucking back.
Is a powerful whip sound. Well, Whip It was controversial, easy target for the religious to attack, contending that the song was about, masturbation or sadomasochism, or I want to get the record straight on what the song is really about.
Well, I learned to shut my mouth when I'd start to do these, we're on tour and you land. They take you to the hotel only long enough to get freshened up. Then you start doing the radio station rounds. Then you go back to the hotel lobby and start doing the interviews, right? Then you go to sound check. Then you play. Then you try to get some sleep and you do it all over again. New city, new thing. So I would open my big mouth and tell them what Whip It was really about. And you could just see their expressions go from really happy or really like, hey, you guys, Whip It good, masturbation, whips, to like, oh, it's what? It's about you're making fun of all the Horatio Alger stuff, like you're number one, there's nobody else like you. You're making fun of individualism in America? What the hell is that? Right? So I went, shh. And we just like when they go, we just laugh back, So that's when I decided that we had to make a video that kind of like, paid off for these guys that think it's about sex, it's about, sadomasochism, think it's about masturbation. So we made the video on purpose to just amplify that.
Well, before we get to the music video, I want to know from your perspective, what does Whip It mean?
It really was just a fun mockery of that whole idea that, this get up and go, optimism that you can beat it, right? No matter what's happened in the past, you can shake it off and you can win, And that's not totally, it's not totally a joke, it's just that you got to take that with a grain of salt if you're a thinking person. But that's what it meant. And of course, it'll never mean that now. It's going to be about masturbation and whipping. That all just came from, again, the stuff we used to collect. I had a book, I think it was Dude. It was a men's magazine from the 60s that I got at a secondhand bookstore. And it had a story about a Hollywood stuntman that had married a stripper from the Sunset Strip. And the Hollywood stuntman had retired, and they bought a dude ranch in Arizona, and people would stay at the dude ranch. But every day of the week, Monday through Friday, he would whip his wife's clothes off in the corral as entertainment for the guests. And that's what you saw in this black and white 8-page article, right? Spread on these guys. So first thing he did is whip the cigarette out of her mouth, whip her cowboy hat off, then whip her blouse off, then whip her fringe skirt off and leave her in her underwear and heels in the corral. And it showed all these guests cheering. And that was it. I go, that's it. This is what we're going to do.
I say whip it. Whip it good.
Devo's going to be playing in the corral. And Mark's going to whip this woman's clothes off while these onlookers cheer. And just fleshed it out from there, so to speak.
Into shape, shape it up, get straight.
Now, was the video really made for $15,000?
Yes.
Incredible.
It was made in one day and night, 16-hour shoot in our rehearsal studio that we had in the time. We rented a warehouse with bow truss ceilings. It was about, 1,800 square feet. And it was all shot in there, just using all these backdrops from Western images. Western costume, from Paramount, rented costumes. Got my friend John Zabrucki, who was really a sci-fi guy, to create the fake log cabin set for us. He art directed it, brought in the hay bales, all that stuff. Found me a seamstress that would take apart Western style turn of the century clothing from Western costume, carefully take it all apart and put it back together with Velcro so that we could connect clear fishing line to the pieces and make it look like Mark's whipping it off.
Try to detect it. It's not too late to whip it.
There's a video that early MTV was played all the time. The relationship between MTV and Devo was complicated, but what was their stance on playing the Whip It video? Did they ever push back at all? Did you ever hear anything about that?
No, we were grandfathered in there because you have to understand, we had 5 videos made before MTV existed. And then the first year they existed, they don't even pretend they existed before 1981 when they launched nationally. And they asked her not, because before then they were experimenting. They went out in 3 cities and they had nothing. They had Video Killed the Radio Star. They had Ashes to Ashes, David Mallet video for Bowie. And they had 4 Devo videos.
Oh, we not men. We are Devo. Oh, we not men.
And they came and begged us for them because they didn't have any programming. And Bob Pittman and John Sykes, who started the station together, took Mark and I to lunch and said, hey, we can't pay you or anything, but we're going to make you guys huge stars. And sure enough, they for that following year, they rotated our videos like constantly, right? And then we made that Whip It video in the late fall of 1980. So they added that, and then they went national, and they went nuts, and MTV exploded.
MTV, music television. This is it.
And they still didn't have much programming, but boy, the programming came hard and fast then.
Hello. This is Devo.
And for about the next year, they were actually playing good videos, whether or not the song was a hit at top 40. They were playing original, video art, right? Like with pop songs or whatever you want to call them.
It's a beautiful world we live in. That's good.
But they weren't basing it on top 40 Parallel 1 stations. But soon enough, because of advertisers and this and that, they turned around and on Devo because it was like, okay, we don't see you in the top 20 here, Devo. Or hey, you sold less this week than last week, so we're taking this off. It was that kind of thing. And then it went from there to full-on censorship, where Madonna could do something, but no other band could. It was just completely arbitrary.
Now it's not even MTV. I don't even know why they call it MTV. They don't play any music.
They just did a big article about the original 5 VJs, right? Not one of those VJs mentioned Devo. Not one of them. When they were first on, they only had 5 videos and 3 of them were Devo. They didn't mention Devo, and they don't mention Whip It. Rolling Stone didn't put Whip It in the top 100 videos. It's like the most iconic video of the 80s that everybody knows. It's intentional. It really is. We really are the pioneers of that scalp. And they didn't like Devo because Devo, did things before it occurred to them. They don't like that.
It's got to be their idea.
Absolutely.
It's not only a classic video from the 80s, but it's become a catchphrase for the 80s.
Yeah, it's like we created a meme before there were memes. Yeah.
You did. Exactly. It's been covered by a lot of great bands too. Pearl Jam. And Love and Death. One of the strangest remakes was recorded by the American teen pop band Devo 2.0.
I say whip it. Whip it good.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that's very interesting. Devo 2.0 was created by Walt Disney Records in an attempt to emulate the popularity, I understand, Swedish pop group The A-Teens. And they covered Devo songs for a teenage audience. That would be one of maybe the most surreal thing ever.
The whole thing seems surreal. Yeah, there was this guy, this producer, and I'm sorry, his name is escaping me right now, but he came from Hollywood Records. But Hollywood Records was in the Disney universe. And he said, we've been working with the Might Be Giants, and we were doing some stuff. We want to do something for middle school audience using Devo songs. You got any ideas? Why not create a middle school band playing our songs and shoot videos? Because that's great. Let's do that. They picked which Devo songs to do. And I swear the suits never paid any attention to him or us until it was all over. Because when it was all over, they freaked. They were like, you can't sing I Got an Uncontrollable Urge. We know what you're talking about. I go, what do you mean? I go, it's undefined. And they go, exactly. That's right. That's the problem. It's undefined. Somebody could think it's about sex. It's like, what could we do? They go, you got to change some lyrics. You got to go back in with Nicole, that was the lead singer, and you got to change some lyrics. You got to define it. And I go, like what? This guy goes, junk food. She's got an uncontrollable urge to eat junk food. So I wrote, before dinner, after lunch, I get a snack attack and I need to munch. And they go, that's great. So now you got a 13-year-old girl singing those lines, which I think are dirtier than our song.
It's been such a big part of pop culture. I mean, it's been used prominently. Simpsons.
That whip. Licorice whip.
Family Guy. Stranger Things. What were your thoughts on some of those when you saw that?
Well, we were amused because it's like something Bob Dylan said a long time ago when somebody said, do you think people understand like a Rolling Stone? And he goes, absolutely not. And I'm glad they don't. It would have never been a hit. And so when you see head scratching uses of your art, right? Almost they're an abomination of what your intention was. At first you could, if you're a purist, you could get angry, but that's not Devo. Devo, in the very philosophy we have, took that into account. That's part of what the definition of Devo is. In other words, Swiffer using it is Devo. That's a case in point.
You got a dirty floor, Swiffer, under table, stove, and door.
And that's low. There's high Devo and low Devo. We are always taking the high and the low and messing with them. And boy, the low just keeps coming. No problem.
Twix and Pringles potato chips and Gateway. And
now that'll never happen with Jihad Jerry. Jihad Jerry doesn't have that cutesy, ambivalent or wishy-washy kind of, what is this? Is it this or this? It's like, here it is, folks.
Let's talk about the song, I'm Gonna Pay You Back.
I'm gonna pay you
right now.
Tell me about the inspiration and about putting it together.
You know, I get very frustrated about Devo being put on ice all the time. And, you know, in all the years, Mark wasn't interested in collaborating and writing new Devo material and all that. But there was that brief little window in 2010 where, you know, we wrote songs together. But when we were rehearsing to go play live off the Something for Everybody tour, a lot of times in the studio, Josh Freese and I would just jam and, you know, we'd mess around, like a couple creative guys doing what gets them off. And came up with several sketches that I never followed through on. So I never finished them, to make a long story short. I talked to Josh and he goes, yeah, man, let's finish that song. You know, let's do. I'm going to pay you back. I love that song.
A bullet for your war of attrition and your exploitation.
So I went down and worked for a couple days in his Long Beach studio. And Jeff Winter brought in Steve Bartek to help me with guitar.
Boingo, boingo.
I really like him. And, you know, he's just the creative surge I needed. We finished it. And I said, well, then what I'm hearing needs a video. No doubt about it. But I know who I'm going to go do it. We have gone so far down the rabbit hole into an alternate reality nightmare that Jihad's kind of a cute, like, cartoon. And that's exactly why I did that video with my good friend Davey Force, who's a CGI genius, who's looking for this, what I jokingly call a cheesy, slathered frosting look that's not real. I wanted to create a timeless reality so that Jihad could come back with different songs, different lyrics, and be in that same world that's not tied to the real world. No one ages in that world. It's a Marvel Comics world.
We survived.
And it's almost like that, those still effects in TikTok stills that teenagers use, right? But it was very hard to do at 30 frames a second. And Davey had to work his ass off going into deep learning AI programs to get anything to track with live action. And he worked hard. And I worked hundreds of hours with him. And I love the video.
100, 200.
But I know what's going to happen. As more and more big wigs see it, they're going to contact Davey and want that look, that deep learning AI look.
Let's talk about the album that's available.
Yeah, it did really well at Record Store Day. They should have printed more. They sold out so quickly. But now it's available as a CD. It's available streaming. Well, if you go to GeraldVCasale.com, you can buy 7 inches of the single with 2 bonus tracks, and you can see the video. And these pins, see the JJ, the Jihad Jerry pin, and there's a crossword puzzle and a poster. Yeah, there's good stuff. There's the T-shirt, the JJ logo.
The original artwork too.
Tomo 77's brilliant. Working with him was fun. He's a cool guy and so creative. It's great to work with other creative people. You know, for so long when as Devo, we never saw anything we liked. We did everything ourselves because we had to, because we were ahead of the curve and nobody was helping us get what we wanted to see. I mean, that's why I started directing. And now that's not true. So much time has passed. This whole universe of people that have aesthetics that resonate with where we were at a long time ago. And they've even taken it further. And when I saw Tomo's stuff, Jeff showed it to me and I just flipped out. I couldn't believe how cool it was. And Davey loved it too. Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to do more. There'll be new JJ songs, new videos, definitely. You know what? I have to say I knew about you, but I hadn't paid enough attention. But when Jeff said you would be amenable to talking to me, and then I started seeing what you've done, I'm so glad I got to meet you and talk to you. And you are the professor. You're amazing. And yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
Crack that whip. I love it. It's one of those songs that just won't leave your head for days, and I never get tired of it. Leave us a comment about Devo, one of the great bands that really threw a wrench into everything. Leave us a comment about this memorable ditty from 1980. What are your memories of the song and the music video? Let us know in the comments. If you dig our content, our videos, make sure to subscribe below so that you never miss out on our daily content. We'd love to have you be a part of our community, and make sure to look us up on Patreon, look at our merch. More content, more help. Helps us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. We'll see you soon.